Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and for my entry into the Stampin' Friends blog hop, we always make a card and a project. So I made this really cute little holder. At first I originally intended to make it like this one that I made last year, which is just a little bit wider. However, this one I kind of thought it's a great way to dress up a gift card if you don't really have something nice to put a gift card in. It's really simple. It uses a piece of 6x6 paper, so you could put a gift card in here, you could put some cash in there, you could maybe even slide in a little thin candy bar like the little mini Hershey bars, or a mini or the little miniatures, the really mini bars. So anyway, then you could just close this up, and I actually left the top so it was completely openable. And then the other thing what I did was I made this tag, but instead of attaching it, I kind of figured it would kind of lend it to being by itself. But I also thought when we do this the second time we make this, I'm going to make this a little bit longer, so then maybe if they wanted to, they could even add this to their Christmas tree. So I thought this was really pretty. This uses the Winter Wood stamp set for the sentiment, and then I just added a little bit of elements with the greenery, and then actually I added the, I believe they're birch trees. I added those in, and then I just went around with the real red to kind of tie it all together because I accidentally did it on Whisper White. So believe it or not, this is Whisper White, which this is based on Very Vanilla. So it kind of goes very well together, I think, anyway. And then I just finished it off with some of the really, really pretty real red ribbon, and this is pretty thick. So we're going to do today, instead, we're going to use a different piece. This is from the Toile Tidings, and this is a 6x6 paper. Now, I did not buy the rest of the suite. I just purchased this to be able to do the DSP share. So I have some of it laying around, but I don't actually have the coordinating stamp set that goes with it, which are cardinals, but it's really pretty. But you could use either side of this. And again, this does back onto Very Vanilla, but I just ended up using this with Whisper White for my sentiment. So this is the envelope punch board, and just in case you didn't know, this actually still is available, and even better, it's in the clearance rack, so you can pick this up. You can make envelopes from it. As you can see, you can make all sorts of gift boxes. It's very versatile. So you can kind of do one of two things. When you want to make an envelope, you can find out what size your card would be. So if you went with your standard card, it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So you need an 8 by 8 piece. Now, personally, I always go with an 8 1/8 by 8 1/8 because I tend to make my cards a little bit thicker. They usually have some embellishments, so sometimes it's a little snug getting it in the custom size with the 8 by 8. So I always go up 1/8 of an inch, just that way I have a little bit of room. If you really wanted to go up, you could go to the 8 1/2 and make a 4 1/2 by 6 inch. One other thing to note, it tells you where to score when you're making this, but you can also just kind of fool around and make things all different ways. So when I was first doing this, I went and looked at paper size, which was 6x6. So it says you want to score it at 3 1/2. So I was going to start with 3 1/2, but I also wanted it to be rectangular, not necessarily square. So if you are doing it rectangularly, you don't want to score on the same lines. You're going to end up with a square. What you're going to do is you're going to punch, and then you're going to score, and then you're going to rotate it, but instead of going to the same inch mark, you're going to just line it up on the score line. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, this is a little difficult to see because of the check, but I'm going to do my best to tell you exactly what I did. So I was kind of starting out with thinking that I wanted it to be a little bit more narrow. So if you go with a 3 1/2 inch score line, so I'm going to go ahead and punch this first one and score it 3 1/2. And then what you're going to do is where the fold is here, which isn't so easy to see, so I'm going to fold it so you can see where I'm going. I'm going to line this little tail right here up, and then I'm going to score again. So that's going to end up being 2 1/2. Now, the thing is, though, we wanted to have this so it had 2 lines. So the way I ended up doing it was I went with 3. So I went with 3, that way we would have 2 lines. So I'm going to go ahead and do this at the 2 1/2. I'm going to punch, and then I scored it again at 3. So it's going to make a little bit more sense once we go along. So then you're going to line this up with the first score line, and then the second score line. And I'm going to have to do the second score line one more time. And I'm going to go to the first. I'm going to punch once. Same thing again. So first score line, punch, and then second score line we're not going to make a punch because I want my tabs to be just a little bit bigger. So let's see, I still need a second score line right here. So where did I end up scoring? Let's see, for this. So this was 3 and 3.5. So for this first one here, let's see, where did I score? I have 3.5, and then I need to go back and do 3. So that's just going to be my first side there, which I should have technically done this one here. So I'm going to do this one more time. So you're going to want to punch it just on the first one. So when you do this, once again, you're going to score it at 3 and 3.5 on each one. So then you're going to end up all these little things. The cool part is too, you can pop this in the other side and you can round off the corners of your envelope. I did purchase this quite a while ago because sometimes I will make my own custom envelopes when I send out stamps to you all as a thank you gift. So that's why I have mine, my envelope punch board, and I will continue to use it. So then what you're going to do is you're going to just fold on the score line, and you can either use your bone folder or you can use your folder that comes with it, because it does come with a folder. So it's more of a plastic version than the actual bone folder that we carry in the online store. So same thing again, just folding all of these. And then this is what's going to kind of give it more of that, almost like a little gift box. So this one I did tell you that I ended up scoring a little bit too much for this one. So this is going to be the top. I'm going to actually use this for the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my snips. And let's see, I'm going to go this way. That way, let me see, if I go in, it'll be on this side. Yeah, so I'm going to trim this way on this one side. And then you can take this little extra piece off up here if you'd like. Just so you'll end up with just a very tiny flap. So you can see there, it's a really small flap. And I'm going to take this little top piece off. And then this one, since I said I punched this incorrectly, I'm just going to cut this off altogether, because you don't really need it. You could leave it there slightly for the structure, but honestly, you don't really need it. So I'm going to remove that. All right, and then that's pretty much it. Only thing we have to do now is we're going to just put it together. Now, this is pretty small, so you could use a really tiny piece of tear and tape if you wanted to, but quite honestly, I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue. That way I can hold it in place and make sure it's right where I want it. So I'm just putting this on that little piece there. So when you fold this up, you're just going to fold this in and hold it. Kind of give it a second. You can stick your finger in there and hold it together. You don't really need a lot of glue at all because it's a really tiny little piece. And then same with this one, you're just going to fold this in, put it together so it feels like it's square, and then kind of just hold the two pieces together just for a second till it hits. And then we're going to fold the sides in, and we're going to just put a little bit of glue on the inside flap here to keep this together. So I'm going to try to open this so I can show you. You don't need a lot. It doesn't have to even go all the way up to the tip. And then same thing again, you're going to kind of fold this over, making sure that it's square. I'm just folding this just to ensure that I did put it together squarely. So just like that, and then I'm going to just press this with my fingers. Nice part about using liquid glue is if you goof it up, you do have a little bit of leeway to be able to correct it. So that's nice. And there you go. So it's just a little mini gift card holder. So just hold this for one more second. I just want to make sure it gets together. Okay. And then you can put in, as you see, I'm sure I'll have plenty of Disney gift cards. So you could put Disney gift cards, whatever gift cards you have in there. Slide those in. They'll slide in really nicely. You can fit a good amount of them. So if you're giving this maybe to a teenager and you want to give them a bunch of gift cards, they would love that. Then you're just going to close the flap over. Now, I did pull out a different ribbon for this one. So for this first one here, we use the, I believe it's an inch, the real red. Is it an inch? the ruched ribbon. Yes, 1 inch, the ruched ribbon. So that will be nice with the green because it gives a little contrast. But then since I went with the red outside for this one, I thought it would be nice to use something different. So this is the Garden Green. I believe it's the double stitched. It's 3/8 inch ribbon. So what you're going to do is just take this, pull it around. Doesn't need to be fancy because that way they can get it open and feel like they're not going to wreck what you gave them. I know sometimes people don't like to open it. And the great part about this is they really don't have to fully open it because it'll just be able to lift the top out there. So I'm going to just trim this up just a little. Okay. And again, if you were really picky about yours, if you were thinking this is vanilla and white, honestly, I really don't think it's going to make too much of a difference because I think they're going to be really happy to just have a gift. So there's that part. So now, in order to finish this, I am going to just stick with the same thing I did before. So once again, I did inadvertently use Whisper White, but it worked out really well in the end with what we did with our little piece here. I am going to grab just a little bit longer of a piece of this. So this is the burlap ribbon, and that's what I used for this part, but we're actually going to take this apart a little bit to be able to put our tag on and kind of make it into a gift tag holder. Now, I was going to say, I know darn right well, I had a viable piece of paper sitting here, and maybe it went underneath of something, but all right. So anyway, I'm going to grab a piece of Whisper White. So for this, I used, same thing, coordinating colors. I used Garden Green. I ended up just using my Real Red marker to trace. So we might do the opposite. And then I used Crumb Cake to kind of give it that little bit of an older look for this since it was on Whisper White. So let me grab a piece here. It's a little too small. All right, so I'm going to use this bigger piece here. So for the sentiment, I just used the standard Thinking of You This Season. And this is actually a clear mount stamp set, but just in case you've not done this before, I just took little pieces of the cling mount for my newer stamps, and I put little pieces on there so I could retrofit these so these won't fall off. So this does have the clear mount stickers. So these are the old style, in case you were wondering. It's really easy to do. I have lots of videos on my YouTube page that you can find. So I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. So that looks nice. And what I am going to do is I'm going to trim this before I go ahead and make it into a tag. So I ended up making this about 1.5. And I'm going to trim this down just a smidge. So we'll keep it at 1.5 by, I'm going to go with 3.25. Just so it has a little bit of something. So 1.5 by 3.25. And again, since this is going to go on red, I'm actually going to do the opposite. So it's going to be hard though to stamp. I didn't even think about that, to stamp these in red. So we're going to stick with just what we did. We'll just duplicate it. Sorry, this is like live, but not live. So what I did with the pine bows is I kind of put 2 of them together. You could stamp one and then stamp the other one off. Kind of really whatever you want to do. You can even add a little 3rd or 4th one there if you want, up to you. So there is that part. Then I took the Crumb Cake and I took the birch trees and I just kind of went across the whole thing. So I stamped, didn't re-ink, kept going, and then I re-stamped it on this side, and I just brought it in one more time just to make it a little bit darker. So very cute, pretty simple though still. Now one other thing that I did is, and this one, apologize, this one is a little bit of a different punch to be able to use because this is the trio punch, so you can round your corners. So I did, on the other one, I did the corners that were closest to the tag. So we'll go ahead and put those 2 in first. You do want to make sure you push this in all the way, so then you have nice rounded corners. But you have this other one here, which is a hole punch. So it does slide straight in, but maybe you're not quite sure where you're going to be with your sentiment. So you could always slide it in the other way. That way you can kind of look it underneath, make sure it's centered, make sure there's no actual words in the way, and then pop that through. So then it makes your little tag hole there. So then the last thing I did was took my real red marker and I did the brush tip end, and I just kind of traced around the whole tag, except one other thing I just realized I forgot to do. So let me just do this really quickly, is I flagged the end of this. So I'm just going to take my scissors and make a little cut in the center and kind of try to cut to the corner and to the corner. And then I'm going to open my marker back up and just trace the edge, just like that. And if you want a little bit fatter of a line around, you're just going to go in farther with your marker. So it just kind of depends on what you're going for. So there's that. So then the other thing I was telling you is that I used, it's got lost here, I used the burlap ribbon, but instead of making it short, kind of like this one is, I'm going to actually tie this one a little bit longer. So this one probably was only about this. It was just like a little scrap. So I'm going to go a little bit longer on that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your snips and you're going to kind of cut in just maybe about a ½ inch to an inch. And then you're going to just pull the ends of this apart. Now this is a teeny bit messy, so just make sure you're somewhere near a trash can, because you're going to have to pull out all these little fibers. But what you can do is you can either do maybe 3 pieces if you'd like, or you could use the whole thing, but I'm just going to grab 4 pieces and I'm going to pull these out of the ribbon. Just like so. Basically, you have, with this ribbon, you have a interweaving portion that, I'm going to cut the other end as well, just to make it a little easier for myself, that holds it together. So if you break this apart, you can actually get smaller strands. So let's see if it lets it go now. Nope. But the reason I say you definitely need a trash can is because all this stuff will come apart, and then you're going to kind of want to pull all the extra stuff. So I'm just going to save this. I could use this for another tag. So I'm just going to make sure all the stuff came off that I wanted. Just like that. Okay, so there's kind of a little pile of little fuzz over here. So I'm going to clean this off. So you don't want this to accidentally get glued into your project. And then we're going to take these, kind of just make sure that for the most part that they're pretty well lined up. And we're going to put this through our hole. And then the nice part is, if they wanted to, they could even add this to their Christmas tree. And just remember that you gave them a nice gift. So this is kind of a nice, it's like a gift in a gift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie my first knot, which is going to just be through here. And once this gets tied, the cool part about this ribbon is it really does kind of take the shape. So when I had this piece, it was something that I kind of had tied. So it really was in the shape of the knot. So that was pretty funny. But what you can do is once you put this in a knot, this part is going to want to stay in a knot. So it is really a nice ribbon to be able to tie. And then you could do one of two things. You could just take the end and you could make a little bow. So a little slip knot through. Or you could tie a fancier knot if you wanted to, but I'm going to make sure I pull this and get this all in there. It's really not this hard, I promise. It's just doing things on camera always makes it look more difficult. But then you have a little loop, so if they wanted to, they could put this on a little pine bow of their Christmas tree. And you're going to tie yours much better than I tied mine. But then all you're going to do is just slide this in. So then you can give them their little gift. and has this little tag, and they could hang the tag on the tree if they like. But I think this was a really simple way to dress up a gift card or cash or even a check. I mean, you could certainly fold one in half. And then if you do take a look at my blog post, which is rachthestamper.com, and you're going to look for the Stampin' Friends Christmas blog hop, it's going to show you the beautiful card that I made to go along with this. So if you wanted to, you could even give them a little card as well. So this uses a stamp set that was in the catalog last year. This was actually from the Christmas catalog the year before. It was great enough though that it made it into the catalog. So this is a wonderful stamp set, Winter Woods. It also does have a coordinating die set that goes with it as well for the tree, and then you can cut these little guys out, and it makes, actually there's a really nice shape that goes with the sentiment that you could cut out really easily as well. So thank you guys so much for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed these projects. I would love it if you would leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up or a heart. It would really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell. That way you'll be notified when I make videos. Thanks guys for watching, and make sure you keep following along in the blog hop so you can have more ideas as well.